Evolution. Charles Darwin was a biologist who devised the theory of evolution and published it in 1859 in a book on the origin of species. He described how organisms changed over time due to natural selection. Darwin based the theory on observations that have been validated by many other scientists. Many experiments have also been performed that prove the theory. It is widely accepted by scientists as the basis for explaining the diversity of life. Darwin made his key observations serving a job as naturalist aboard the HMS Beagle, a British ship with a map-making mission from 1832 to 1837. Darwin observed the different types of finches and tortoises living on the Galapagos Islands. He observed how the different types were well suited to the island they lived on. Long-necked turtles lived on islands with tall plants. Short-necked turtles lived on islands with plants that grew close to the ground. Finch beaks were similarly customized to their environments, depending on the types of seeds that they consumed. Darwin put his observations together with the work of many others and wrote his theory of evolution based on natural selection. Natural selection is when better adapted organisms survive, reproduce, and have more offspring. It requires variations in traits, inheritance of traits, competition for limited resources, reproduction success differences, and deep time. Populations of sexually reproducing organisms show variations in their traits. Some individuals are more suited for survival than others. Barnacle shapes vary within their population. The sketches are from Darwin. People understood that offspring inherited traits from their parents, even before the discovery of DNA, genes, and chromosomes. They understood that some traits are beneficial and others were disadvantages. Competition limits population sizes. Starfish compete for food and space. The stronger starfish will survive based on advantageous traits. Organisms with beneficial adaptations, like giraffes with long necks or starfish that win their competition battles, will survive to reproduce. Organisms that are not as adapted to their environment have smaller survival rates and won't reproduce as much. The Earth is very old, and its crust is dynamic. The age, deep time, is sufficient for major changes to take place in species over a long time. The dynamic crust enables ancient organisms to be buried and then brought back to the surface as fossils, contributing to the theory of evolution. Artificial selection is another type of evolution, but is driven by human input. Humans control breeding to select favorable traits in offspring. Starting 7,000 years ago, humans have bred dogs by choosing which pairs will mate and pass on their desired traits to the next generation. Over many generations, the diversity in the dog population has increased markedly. The ancient ancestors of this Jack Russell Terrier were wolves. Darwin proposed that all living things are descendants of a common ancestor, and all species have been modified over time, with most species going extinct. He called this idea descent with modification. His concept is summarized in the Tree of Life that he sketched in his 1837 notes. These are living species, here's the common ancestor, and these are extinct species. Scientists use tree diagrams to model how the different forms of life on Earth are related to one another. Tree of Life diagrams show how life branched out during evolution. On the next slide is a tree diagram showing how different types of domestic cats are related to one another. Start in the middle to find the ancient ancestor of all species on the chart, then work outwards toward the current species that are shown around the perimeter. The ancestor of all domestic cats is shown where the red and blue lines meet. Different branches of cats are represented in different colors. Cats are more closely related to cats that are on nearer branches. This tree of life is read from left to right. The ancient ancestor of all vertebrate animals is shown on the left. Modern species are shown on the right. This diagram of the current kingdoms on Earth shows that prokaryotes dominate in terms of diversity. The prokaryotic domains, bacteria and archaea, include more kingdoms than the eukaryotic eukarya, where big life is found.